I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
Shout out to our sponsors. Major Team Mortgage, Omaha Laser Dentistry, Exclusively Eye Care, Liberty Core Real Estate, Avior Wealth Management, and Apex Men's Clinic. We appreciate their support.
Yo, Gloom listeners, it's The Plague, and today I'm talking about getting your finances as fit as your physique. Our very own F3 Omaha brother Jean-Claude, aka Michael Pfluger at Avior Wealth Management, specializes in building personalized financial plans. He understands the journey you walk in life as a man of faith, safeguarding your family and creating a legacy. Jean-Claude is ready to help you plan your finances with intention so that you can live with purpose. And that's just the beginning when you work with the Avior Wealth team. Visit avior.com/F3. That's AVIOR.com/F3 and see how Michael can guide your financial journey today.
Now let's get back to the gloom.
And we're back. This is awesome. I love seeing this guy's smile on the other end. And I'm reminded of the COT at the Shovel Pass, just the passion that this guy has for other men in the community and really connecting guys across, Omaha and the greater metro area, and just love the way that he leads other guys. So Almost Famous is on with us today. It's good to see you, man. You look great. We got through a little bit of audio connectivity issues, which is good. And here we are. So want to just have you start us off at the beginning, kind of tell us that EH story and then that first workout and how you got your name.
Yeah, so the EH story was a long time coming. I was working at Home Instead, right next to Wait Time. I mean, like literally, I was in a cubicle that was 4 feet away from Wait Time's office, and so like every day he'd come in and he'd look like a little more beat up and but he was always looking fly and like really had his act together. And so he just would not shut up about F3. He would send emails to whoever would like listen about it, and then Roadhouse joined up, and I was like, he's a great guy too. And so it was sort of this Home Instead journey of people just beating me up for a while. And then it was actually 2 days after I left Home Instead that I decided, you know what, like I'm in between this job and my next gig, and I have no excuse anymore. Because the big thing was like I wasn't working out almost at all. It was kind of sporadic walks here and there. If I was feeling really moved by the spirit, I'd go on a run, and then it would be nothing for another month or something like that. And so a big thing was like I was intimidated by the workout, right? So I was like, all right, I'm in between jobs. Like if I totally get destroyed during this workout, then I don't ever have to come back. And it's like whatever. I tried something that these guys wouldn't like stop talking about, and now at least I can say like it's
That's
not for
awesome.
me. So yeah, that was the story of like how
And
I
I'm
got brought out.
imagining Wait Time has an F3 flag in his office and like is wearing, does he wear F3 shirts to work? And no, I'm kidding. That's got to be a fun experience.
Yeah, super nice suits. He can't even use his office because there's so much F3 gear. He's knocking it off the desk every time someone calls. No.
So were they there for your actual workout?
I don't remember if Wait Time was there. Roadhouse was. And I remember the workout itself. I showed up and I went to the Trident first. That was the first one ever. Doppler was on the queue. And it was the week before the Shovel Pass from Roadhouse to Slick, right? So Doppler was like, I'm going to do the weirdest possible workout that I could do. And he achieved his goal. Like, he did what he set out to do, right? There was one that lives on, and I pull it out every once in a while, but it was the Dirty Dancing Pickle Pushers. And so this is towards the end of the workout. That's been real weird already. And then the end is he's like, make eye contact with your partner, and he's going to lay on his back, and you're going to do a bench press of your partner, eye contact the whole time, So the DDPP is what we have called it now. So every once in a while that'll come out. So it was a super weird workout, but I just remember like in the first like 2 minutes, just seeing how comfortable these guys were with each other, that they could just be as weird as they wanted to be, and it wasn't weird. Like in this community of people, it was like we're just having fun. It's ironic, and then the irony starts to become your like reality, and then it gets confusing with that. But you're like, you just see the friendship and the relationship. It just like it struck me immediately, like
Well,
2 minutes in, you know.
and how did we get the name? How the name Rama go?
Yeah, so the name Rama, it started off horrible because I was super out of shape and I was like about to hurl my guts and like walked away and like I was like, all right, I'm feeling super nauseous. Then I come back and they're like, all right, tell us your most embarrassing story or whatever. And I'm like trying to tell stories, but it's not making any sense. And like they were like, how'd you meet your wife? And I said I used to be in a band actually, and she came up to me after one of our concert gigs, and they were like, oh, Almost Famous. And I knew, like, the Trident, I think about 80% of the nicknames at the Trident are based on, like, 80s film references. So you got to, like, take that into account, first of all. But second of all, I was like, okay, I know vaguely that's a movie about rock stars, right? And so I was like, so, like, for a year or so, I was like, all right, I'm like a rock star. I think I'm a rock star. And then I watched the movie, and it's, like, the main character is, like, this, like, pasty white 17-year-old homeschool kid. And they're like, that's the guy they're talking about, not the like sex icon rock star guy. So I finally watched it. Now I know the reality of my name. So
what? Just curious. What? Tell us more about the band. What was that? What happened there, or how'd that go?
yeah, it started with just me and my buddy who was. I mean, I was a bad singer and he was a bad guitar player, and we were like, we should make something really beautiful out of this. And we started playing together, and we started to pick up people who were actually talented, and we started to play. We did a lot of like Christian rock, like you think of like Creed. That was like up our alley, like kind of Skillet, and it got pulled more in that direction. Our drummer was actually he's still touring, but he was like a metal, like double bass sort of drummer, like really talented guy. And he really carried us. But it was funny because we'd be playing like praise and worship at a youth group event, and it's like, getting to kind of like the climax part of where it's like the height of the song and everything, and then all of a sudden he starts pulling out like double bass drums, and you're like, I don't really need to be here. Like, this is great. Like I just watch you do your thing, and it's powerful, it's wonderful. But yeah, college kind of broke us up because we all went our separate ways. And
what was the band name?
So,
what was the band
yeah, it was
name?
a good time.
Can we find you on any platforms?
The band name is Social Contradiction. That was the name of it, and we were on Spotify for a while, but I think Spotify was like, you have to have at least one listen in 6 months in order to stay on our platform. So at some point, it got knocked off. But I've still got the CDs. If you guys really want to listen, like there's a couple of CDs that still exist.
I love it, man. Well, what, thinking about your initial hesitation, right? Like the workout could be super tough, and then you went to Trident, like sort of reflecting back afterwards, was it a difficult workout, or was it just super weird? Like, what was your takeaway? Like,
it's funny because I did the workout and I was like, man, that was really difficult. One of the like harder things I've done in a while. But then at my 1 year anniversary, I led that same workout, and I actually like layered on a couple of like more like difficult things. And it was like I led the workout and crushed it. So I think a lot of it had to do with my mentality coming into it. Like, what do I expect? And there is true, like, you just build muscle, even if you're not like being super intentional about like conditioning and being there like Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
right.
Arms one day and legs. Like, it really made it. It's
made
it's
like measurable progress too. So
yeah, I think
like to knock it out the next year. I mean,
yeah.
You're doing something right.
Yeah. The Dirty Dancing pickle pushers were way easier the second time around.
What was your fitness?
Yeah. That's how I know.
Well, that's, it's interesting, right? There are like the Murph is sort of a routine kind of benchmark type of thing. And like leading the workout. I love that as an idea for guys, like lead the workout that you started on and see if it's any easier. That's a great idea. What, tell us a little bit about sort of like backstory on fitness and maybe physical health for you. Did you grow up playing sports? Was sort of physical fitness part of your routine, or like what's been your journey from that regard, like up until F3?
Yeah. So I'm the third of 7 kids, and we are a super competitive family. Like we're always trying to one up each other, and so there's like the general family culture of the like competitive spirit, and then I'm like the forgotten third child, and so like I was constantly trying to prove myself in sports and those sorts of things. So yeah, growing up, I played like football, basketball, soccer, baseball. When I got to high school, I dropped baseball, but I kept going with other sports. Um, and then by my senior year, I had decided to try other activities. And I say I decided, I just didn't make the team. So I was like, I'm going to go try other things now. So it was like, I remember one of my friends in high school said, like, Alex, you're the most athletic non-athlete I've ever met. And I was like, I don't really know what to make of that. Like, I'm not sure. Like, you're saying I'm a non-athlete, but I am athletic, so I'm just gonna like call that a compliment. But, and so then in college, I played a lot of intramurals. So a lot of it was like based on kind of sports and just like regular cadence of having something on Tuesdays or Thursdays or some kind of like game that's going on. Did a lot of like pickup soccer. I played some frisbee. And like those sorts of things where it was like athletic, getting moving, and I like the game, I like the competition of it. But it was never anything formal. Like if I had ever had a routine schedule in like the weight room or anything like that, it was because I was playing sports. Like it was because it was like leading up to that point of like, all right, we're gonna be playing a game, and running for a ball and not making it there in time. That's always been something that's really like it. I remember that when I'm in the weight room and I'm like, all right, like I didn't make it, like that didn't have that extra burst of speed. So it's never been something like going to the gym by itself has never been something that like motivates me, especially when it's just me going. And so I feel like F3 kind of pulls together a lot of the like the teamwork aspect of things, and there's accountability and people that regularly. You go and you're hanging out and you're having fun, and it's a good workout, but it's not so hard that you're like, I don't want to do that again. Like it's harder to get out of bed.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, it sounds like, yes, you were involved and you did things for fun as they came up, intramurals, things like that. But, what was it that kind of flipped the switch here to where it was just enough of a change of dynamic and how the workout was either structured or the people that were there that kept you coming back?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. And I think it's part of the mystery of like why other regions in F3 maybe can't like emulate F3 Omaha. Like there's just an energy here. I could say like 1,000 things that are just like little cuts towards explaining why that is. I think there's something really cool about the fact that there's a pre-run at every site. And you just see like the energy coming in. Like there's guys who have been up for an hour already who are ready to be like messing around, joking around, and incorporate you into the community they've already built up. F3 is just really welcoming. Like it truly is. Before you've had any contact with F3 guys in an F3 environment, like it's really easy to get in your head and not like be pretty like prideful about where you're at maybe, and to say like I don't want anybody to see me like that. Like that was one of the reasons I didn't want to come out. I was just like I did not want to be humbled in that way, right? And it was humbling for sure. Like objectively, I'm like I used to be able to like crush this kind of a workout, and now it's like look how far I've come in a couple of years, or like 3 or 4 years, right? But F3's just always been welcoming. Like Slick, I remember it was super. He kind of like had my back that first workout, and then the whole next few months while I was in the process of like going to 1 workout a week, and then maybe 2 workouts a week. He was always there, like super welcoming, saying like, "Glad you're here, man." That had a huge impact on me. So I think the camaraderie has been huge. The energy that gets brought is huge. I think just starting the workout the same way every time makes people feel welcome no matter what. Like, and I know other regions just kind of like, all right, everyone, like looks like this is everyone. Let's get going, And it's pretty easy to like take that for granted that we do that in Omaha, that we like take the time to say the same thing every time. And it makes people feel like, okay, I know what to expect. Even if I don't know anyone here, I know what to expect, and we all know what to expect, so we can connect on that.
Man. It's interesting, all of those little sort of standards that we've kept, year over year and have just been consistent create like you said, this environment where there's the guesswork is removed, right? You're not having to kind of sort of establish your sort of place in the community, which is awesome. And I'm curious because I think it sounds like you've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years through working out and in that space. How do you feel? How are you feeling? Like, would you say from that first step kind of fitness standpoint, are you where you want to be? You got some more room to grow? What's been your journey there?
Yeah, I think there's always more room to grow. Like we're all fighting aging and like the demands of life, right? And so I do think there's a long way to go. Some notable things that I've kind of put in my belt, right, is like on my birthday last year, I rucked 13.1 miles, like a full half marathon, and I just thought that was something like even moving that far was a huge accomplishment for me that I did not expect I would be able to do. Like I kind of was starting to get into this mindset of like, all right, well, I had my athleticism and my physical fitness in the past, and now sort of I'm moving into adulthood, and I just have to be okay with not having that, right? And then like F3 comes into the picture, and that's not my trajectory at all anymore, right? So then later that year, I got together with some buddies and we climbed a 14er out in Colorado. We did Mount Bierstadt, which is like a 6 or 7 mile hike uphill. It's still kind of a beginner one, and I struggled like going up, and it was again humbling to see some guys who were they were like born in the mountains and they're like mountain goats going with me and they're just like flying up and down and saying hi to everybody and all that. And I'm just like, all right, step by step, like get a little, farther. But that fraternities like always just kept me going. I've also just noticed in general, I have more energy for my kids. Like a big part of why I wanted to like start to get fit again was just to have like energy at the end of the day to take care of my kids, I think where I'm at in terms of fitness though, I am realizing like my diet has got to shift now. Like I'm just not as young as I used to be. Like my metabolism is like changing in front of me. Like, and I know some people listen to this and be like, "You're a child. Like, stop talking." But like, it really is. It's like noticeable now. If I like indulge in certain ways now, it's like, all right, that shows up. Like even in how like I can notice how I feel the next day, right, in the workout. And be like, I would be able to like nail this if I wouldn't have eaten like dessert. Like
for sure. So, have you participated in Queen Service or anything like that? Like any of the other second half opportunities that we do?
I have before.
And what was your experience? How did you feel about it?
What I've been trying to do. Yeah, I'll like to be honest. I think it's great, and I think this community of support is really great. I've never been great at saying like I'm going to lose this much weight in this much time, because it's not. I mean, I have actually. I'll say. I guess I have been great at it. Like I've had when I went to law school in Lincoln, and I gained like 25 pounds in my first year, and then I lost 30, right? And so that was like I think it was like a 14-month period where that happened, right? So I can, but and then I on the other side of it, I'm like. I didn't actually change my habits. I just kind of white knuckled it through. And that's not everyone's experience with Queen Service. That's just my personality, like to be all or nothing on something. Because then I'm like, all right, I just worked so hard for 6 months. Like I can enjoy this. Like this is great. Like I'm having a great time,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's back and forth though. I think it's
they talk about like the Pogo 40, and I'm right there with you, learning that you cannot out king your queen, right? As they say.
Right.
And, the strategy I'm currently doing is I'm just not. I'm not eating anything. I'm just eating my kids' leftovers, and then that seems to be, they basically don't eat ever a full meal, and so then I'm like I'll just eat what they don't eat, and that ends up being still too much. But no, I'm with you there on that.
Yeah.
What as you think about kind of you mentioned a couple times like the teamwork and camaraderie, and just thinking about like that second F fellowship piece. Talk to us about your experience there. Like, did you know guys when you showed up, or how did you go about building some relationships in the group?
Yeah, even after the first few times I went to F3, I didn't know a lot of the guys, right? So it was like there was really like Roadhouse and Wait Time, like those were a couple that I knew relatively well, but we worked together, so it's not like we knew each other's like everything about our life. But it's been one of those things where as I work out, I find people who have not been super vocal about being an F3, and they show up, and I'm like, dude, I've been going for like 2 years, and you've been going for like a year, and we haven't ever talked about this. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty crazy, man. Um, yeah, like my cousin Duct Tape, that happened too. He's my cousin-in-law, right? He's a big Oracle guy, and he'll come out, especially when the weather's nicer. And there was totally one of those, like we both showed up, and I was like, I've never seen that guy. Whoa, that's you, Nate. Like, what's up, man? Like, you know. But I do think there's a lot of guys who they show up and they're like, oh, you're here and you're here, and like it's like a kind of a party because they're like, I didn't even realize all you guys were here, or you did realize, and it was just like you're the last guy to be showing up. Part of it might be an age thing and like where I live and everything. Like there's I live really close to Trident, right? So like there's that element, and so there's guys who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, which I think is an absolute like plus for the organization in general. But it meant that I think for a lot of these guys, if they knew about me, they knew about like my elder brother or like my uncle or something like that. So it's been a curve of like learning and just showing up, but one thing I'll say about that is just like the over and over again seeing of each other, like builds a relationship. Like even if you didn't talk at all, like if you see somebody 10 weeks in a row, you're friends. Like if you go through like a F3 workout 10 weeks in a row, like there's nothing in the way. Like you're just friends now, So that's been my journey. I do think earlier on it was a little intimidating. Yeah, for sure. Like a little scary to be showing up and being like, no one knows who I am. I don't really know these guys. I love the concept and I'm like falling in love with that and I'm talking to everybody I know about it. But it was just like a foreign idea to a lot of my friends and it wasn't like something they had heard a lot of people doing. And so a lot of my friends now have come out and will post. But it took a while, I think a lot of it was like people get used to like, all right, you're in 7th grade. So you're like working out, playing sports with 7th graders, you're in high school. It's like, you're in that age range, even college. And then out in the real world, it's like, that's not how it works anymore, anywhere really, So you have to like figure out, am I okay with that? Like, why am I hanging out with all these guys? Like those sorts of things when you're a younger guy are like more intimidating. And I think as I've gotten older, even the last couple of years, it's like, oh, this is just like how it is.
Yeah,
like,
this is like
in
the real
world. Like this is how it is,
Well, so I am curious. I know you come in knowing Wait Time and Roadhouse and a couple other guys that you met as you were going. I'm curious on how the dynamic in your relationship changed by being part of F3, how that friendship blossomed. And then on the flip side, as you've invited friends in, how has it kind of changed the dynamic of your friendship there?
That's a really good question, and it's a little complicated with Wait Time and Roadhouse because we were all going through this major acquisition of our company at the same time as well. So there's just like a few guys in the world who have really like gone through what I've gone through in the like truly like they went through it through the acquisition of Homestead, and I want to say like the Hogans were the owners of Homestead, and they were really intentional about building a strong culture that was, based on people and really human. And the company changed like after the acquisition. And so everybody was kind of feeling this like malaise at best, right? About work. And I left, I kind of gave a certain amount of time to it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to leave if these problems are still persisting at the end of this. So it's one of those, it was like really hard to let go and say goodbye, right? And so when I went to the Trident for the first time, I was like, I know there's a great chance I'll see Roadhouse and I'll see Wait Time like regularly. So this is going to be a way to keep that relationship alive, right? Because, like how it is, like when you switch jobs, it's like you just don't see people anymore. It's like if you happen to see them, cool, right? So it's been a really interesting journey with our relationship because we know sort of things about our past that are like particularly painful and hard that we've all gone through. But we see it as like brothers now because we can do this other thing that's outside of that together. I think it's also helped me keep a pulse on. There usually are a few people you kind of keep in contact with, right? Once you leave, and so each of us have like those groups of people that we've been able to be like, all right, so what are they up to? How are like, are they doing okay? Did they find a job? Did they land well? Like, those sorts of questions. I think it's improved. So that's the question with like the folks who I was working with, and then my other friends. I think what's interesting about having them come out is like um, it shines a new light on the friendship, right? Because like even if we were the kind of people like there were a few of my friends who we
Yeah.
would like go on runs together, right, and get together and stuff. It's like it takes away out all of the like coordination piece of it, and also like going to F3 helps you incorporate other
Yeah.
people into your friendship, right? Which has been really cool because it's just like a kaleidoscope of colors on your like already existing friendship of like this is what we used to do, but now we can do more things together and we can be like more fully integrated. Um, I've also been really passionate for a long time about like you should
Yeah.
see your friends, right? Like when you have friends, like you should be seeing them pretty regularly, because that's a big part of like building a relationship. And I think F3 is just a way to do that, like to commit to say like, all right, this is a regular way that we get together and it doesn't interfere with the rest of our
Yeah.
life just because it's so
Yeah.
freaking early in the morning. Like, and that's always been an obstacle for people of it being early. But I'm like, that's the point, guys. Like,
Yeah,
this
it's a
doesn't
little
interfere
cheat
with your
code. I
life.
mean,
Like that's this is
and I think
friendship
Brandon and I kind of, or
relationship.
Plague and I go
Yeah.
through some of the same things where, okay, we're part of the same small group of church, right? But even before he moved out, the times we could see each other the best at work for our schedule, we both got young kids, it's in the morning. It's very difficult. We've been talking for the past few weeks about, man, we need to get together outside of small group and let's get the kids and wives together. It's just hard. And so I think you're hitting on a great example of this is kind of a carefree, it's there, it doesn't really mess with a lot of people's schedules and it can be done if you just make the time to get up in the morning. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. Remind me, Almost Famous, how old are you? Okay.
I'm 31.
Give us that perspective or go a little bit deeper if you don't mind on some of the challenges. You kind of mentioned maybe like as a younger guy coming into the group, trying to get your friends to buy in. Any thoughts on that or any insight that might help us as we're maybe talking to some of the people in our lives that are around the same age as you? Any thoughts there?
It's a good question. I think that it is a time of life where you're still figuring out how to do the most important things well, right? And so F3 talks about like noble excuses for not coming out. I think that when you're really like hitting the ground running with the foundations of your career, those noble excuses I think are even more powerful than when like you're humming as a parent and like your kids are getting older and you know who you are as a professional. I think that one way that I think been more successful in talking about that with people is like this is not one more thing for you to figure out. This is a place where you can go and there's people who have figured it out and who are further along the path than you, and it's really easy to ask for advice. Like it's super easy. And the 5:30 a.m. thing, I've said to a lot of people, like it is a sifter. Like these are driven people who show up, right? And I'm not saying you're not driven if you don't show up, but like all of the kids who woke up early at sleepovers growing up when they were the first ones up, they're all in one place, and it's F3. Like they're all there. You know what I mean? Like all of the people were like, all right, yeah, we just had that great time watching 28 Days Later and drinking Mountain Dew, but like, what if we go like build a house, guys? Like what's all of those kids like grew up and now are in F3, right? And so you don't have to like go and search for, it's a lot more manual labor to find super solid guys, I think, out in the wild. And they're just there. Like F3 is just like a solid community. And I think as my passion has like waned is not the right word, but you have kind of like the honeymoon phase with F3, right? And then like after a while you start to see like what was the value of like where just I was in life, and then like what is like the really foundational, beautiful things about F3. And I do think one of them is just that like mentorship that happens naturally with people where if you're willing to be vulnerable and talk about something, especially like a COT or something, I've found that the more vulnerable I am, the more guys come up to me and say, hey, I went through that, like I had one, I won't share his name, but I was just talking about imposter syndrome during one of my COTs down at the Canyon, and just feeling like I never fit in any kind of group, and so like I've always had that in general. And then you go to F3 and it's like, oh, I'm the youngest here, and then like sometimes I'd go and I'd be the oldest, and it'd be like, right now I don't fit in because I'm the weirdo who like has a bunch of kids and like these people don't understand. Like I find a way to make sure that I'm like isolated,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was sharing this, and there's a guy who comes up and he's like, "Hey, I've been in recovery for 14 years, and I still show up to meetings, wondering
Mm-hmm.
like, do I really fit in here? Like, am I like an imposter here? Like,
Yeah.
14 years, you know, like being a part of that kind of community, and there's still a way to be like, no, their story isn't really like mine." Um, and so the vulnerability is it's difficult, especially for guys, you know. But I found the more that I do it in a like tactful way, the more guys will come up and be like, "Hey, man, I'm doing this, like same thing. Like it's seriously like I'm really glad you put words to that because I want to work through that like with you." And there's just like
Mm-hmm.
this openness. And I think it's because of like the play, the like carefree spirit and flexibility of not being wanted by people at 5:30 in the morning that you can actually like
Yeah.
be who you
Yeah.
are really easily.
Well, is there any, those sound like some foundational pieces. I am curious, and, I don't think anyone will knock you for saying, but, were there some things that were important to you that kind of faded away after the honeymoon phase that you realized in retrospect may have not
Hmm.
have been that important to you?
Yeah, I think that when I started, I did like the attention that you
Yeah.
get from like being the new guy and being like younger and like all of that. And that starts to fade off and that sheen goes away and you're like, oh well, I'm not the new guy. And then it was like I took the shovel at Golden Spike from Oompa. I was really blessed to have that opportunity. But then it was like all about me at the shovel flag pass, you know. And as the year went on, it's like again, like I'll tell another Doppler story. It was like 9 inches of snow and it was raining, and Story's Coffee, where we normally get coffee, was closed. Like it was that bad, and um, but like showing up there, I just remember that morning. I was like, "What am I doing right now?
Yeah.
Like, why am I here? Like, this is so stupid. What am I doing?" And it was just like a few months. It was like a month later. I was like, "I'm really proud of myself for doing that. Like, that was not about me. Like, it was about showing up for Doppler and like and for anybody else who was going to be there. And we ended up having like 8 guys and had a pretty good time. We went to Sister Act's for coffee afterwards. Um, and so it was like this great experience, but it was like
Mm-hmm.
none of it was about me, right? And so I've been recognizing this like change in what brings me to F3, and like making those newer guys feel welcome and stuff is really I try to like give back what I had early on. So it's an interesting thing because now it's like in that giving, right? It's like yeah, I don't know, I don't want to be corny, like it is
Yeah.
in the giving you receive, right? Because now you can say like it's really cool to see guys who were maybe a little unpolished as like people and not able to like talk to strangers very well, and they're struggling with their fitness, and then they just keep showing up, and you see this like gradual like chipping away at who they were supposed to be, and like the other stuff starts to fall away. I see that more than I did when I started. I think that
Oh,
Wow.
answers
that's
your question.
I love it. And I think something that, I don't know if you recognize that you did this or have done this, but I think you set an example, right. In being vulnerable, but then you also create a platform for other guys to be vulnerable. And I think it was maybe my 5-year clean date or something, but I remember I got the chance to queue at Golden Spike while you were leading. And just uh, I felt special, like I had a space to just be myself and share that story, as difficult as it might be sometimes to rehash all those details. But something super powerful is when we do that for guys, we allow them to like be themselves and be loved for it. And I think you did that, right? You provided so many opportunities for myself, so thank you for that, but also for other guys. And I think when you lead by example that way, you just start to see this like men accelerating and like getting comfortable being who they are, and then some of that sort of imposter syndrome maybe goes away. But I would agree with whoever it was that you talked to that I think that's just something we kind of battle in tension with the world. But man, I love you. I love hearing your story and your passion. It just really makes me smile. But one of the other things I'm curious from your perspective, because we think about relationships, kind of that second F vein. We think about concentrica, and curious what, if any, impact you've seen F3 have maybe on your family, your relationship with your M or your 2.0s, anything in that space.
Yeah. I'll deflect it first, but I'll get back to the family and things. I think that when you have a strong community and just a group of people who are, really involved in the community, really good at what they do professionally, and they care about you as a person, it's like an
Mm,
insurance policy on life. Like you might even call it life insurance, but like it's this idea that like if everything went wrong, right? If I lost my job, if like everything like went away, everything that I owned was gone, my house burned down, um, you see that just because other guys are a part of F3, that they're like loved and they're a person that is important, right? You see all these guys like going through some really tough shit right now, and it's like we show up like and we try to like show out for those people and make them know that like it's not okay what's
yeah.
happening to you, but I'm here for you, man, and I think that that level of support and love for each other creates an easier path to peace
Mhm.
internally, and that piece has had a huge impact on my life, and it's had a huge impact on my ability to like love my wife and my kids better, because I'm not worried about the whole rug being pulled out from under me and like things not going well just because one
Yeah.
thing goes wrong. um, I'm a lot more uh, willing to accept mistakes as part of the process in my life, and I think that's having a huge impact on the way that I'm raising my kids. Because I think when I was growing up, like good, bad, or indifferent, we had really high standards that were put on us. And I still have high standards for my kids, but I'm a lot better at talking about forgiveness and like loving yourself and saying like, everything's going to be okay. Like you're not, almost
Mhm.
nothing can't be fixed, right? So like, no matter how big your mistake is, like there's going to be some greater good. Um, my faith is super important to me. We can get into that more, but just this idea of like mercy and forgiveness and all of that is fine when it's abstract, but when it's real and and you've seen other guys be supported through things, I think it just
Yeah.
changes everything.
Man, I love that. I think I'm curious. Remind us how many kids you have?
I have 35, I think. We have 5 kids. Our oldest is 9. We have twin 8-year-olds, 8-year-olds now. They just had their birthday, and then a 4-year-old and an
Wow.
18-month-old little girl. So it's
Wow.
4 boys and a
What?
girl.
So you had your first kid when you were in your 20s? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I was 22.
Have
Yeah.
you brought any of your kids out to F3? Have they got to kind of see dad's crazy adult recess male workout group?
Yes, yeah. My oldest, his name's Abe, but his
Nice.
nickname is All Star. He came out. I brought him out to the sprintathon that was going on, and we played a little frisbee that was in the middle of the field, and I ran a couple legs of the sprintathon. He loves it, right? The funny story that came from that was we went to church the next day, and we were doing this small group, and he goes up to this gal who is like probably about 65 years old, and she knows nothing about F3. Like she's never heard of it or anything like that. And he goes, "I went out to F3 yesterday. Guess what my nickname is? It's All Star." Like just know, like it was just like this perfect little kid version of how
Mhm.
excited we all get when we join. Like
That's awesome. I
so good.
love it. What so what is it? I mean he likes it. Do you think will you bring him back out or what's your approach there?
Yeah, yeah, he does like it. It's a balance right now of finding like the right time of day and like not a lot going on later in the day because he's
Yeah.
still like he's growing like a lot right now. So figuring out like is he going to be a total monster the rest of the day even though he
Yeah.
loved that like first hour. That's the
Um,
that's the crux of it right now. But yeah,
and what about your
absolutely
M?
we'll
What
bring
does
him
she
back out.
think about the whole thing?
She doesn't know about it. She sleeps in, so I haven't told her yet. So no, she loves it. She's loved F3 and just seen the growth. She's she's brought it up multiple times just to be like, it's so good what you guys do for each other, and she's seen the growth. Um, and like I think part of it's like I've just been able to like trust people better and like love other people better and love her better. Just because again I feel that like sense of peace that I've not felt in the past.
I love it. Sorry, it's just so fun. I'm just imagining a world where like we didn't tell our wives about it. That would be it would be really funny actually. Liberty Core Real Estate is your homegrown real estate broker. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, whether personal or investment, Armando, aka Brian, and Megan Michaels' company is ready to serve you. With Command Center in Old Town Elkhorn and agents all throughout the metro, they are more than ready to guide and serve you in your next real estate endeavor. Whether your next move needs to happen now or in 5 years, call or text Armando at 402-770-2165 to get your questions answered. And a special offer for F3 Nation PAX members, Liberty Core will donate $250 to your sponsor of choosing for every closed transaction. Stop looking, start finding today with Liberty Core Real Estate. What kind of a transition to the third F piece, and you mentioned faith is a big part of your story, and also that you were in a Christian band. So kind of give us maybe the backstory too. Maybe how'd you grow up? What was faith like growing up, and then where you at today?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Omaha and I've always been Catholic. I was a cradle Catholic, they call it, like from the time I was just a baby. Um, and it's been an interesting journey. Like as I grew, um, I think that part of it is like my personality. Like I went on to be a lawyer, right? I experienced it as like a lot of rules. And I experienced it as like there is a like particular way you're supposed to live, and there's like really rigid lines around that. And I do think there's like objective morality and reality to like, if you hurt people, they're not going to be your friend, and like they're not going to love you the same way. Like there's just like objective things about like the dignity of humans and how we can love each other well, right? And I do think that there's like this um, sin exists. Like we can do wrong to each other. And when people stop believing in sin, then they also have to stop believing in mercy, which I think is just like a really insidious thing that's kind of infecting our culture, right? So like there are definitely things that I believe are true, but I also believe that I realized that I was putting a lot of layers on top of that in terms of like what a good person is, and I kind of had stopped seeing the good in a lot of people just because I was like, oh, you made that choice where I disagree with you, and it's just like stuff about like which like which friends you hang out with, and like what's your opinion on like how much money a person should have, or what's your politics, or like those sorts of things where I was layering that on first instead of seeing the person. Um, and in line with a lot of what I've said already about F3, these last 2 years, I've seen that like the person of Jesus is real in my life, and he's acting. And if I'm open to that, um, I know that like faith is not everyone's like cup of tea in F3, and I'm not the kind of person who's like expecting this overnight shift or even a shift at all in order to stay with F3 or anything like that. I want to love people where they are, but there's just this question that has nagged at me when I've had like periods of doubt and things like what if it was all real, right? What if this like thing that you maybe came across as like a nice story or like the opiate of the people or something like that, like what if it is real? And like what if the desire in my heart for something greater does have an answer, and like what if it makes sense that the universe has like a beginning for a reason, like, and like there's a big bang, and that might not be like incompatible with the idea that like a God created that and like pushed everything out and is still pushing everything out into the universe, right? Like what if that was true? And that's been like a really, I've taken that like step, I think, in a lot of ways of like not allowing it to just be this abstract set of rules, letting it be like allowing God to be like asking him like, all right, if you're real, like show me, and I've given him an inch, and I feel like he's just given me a mile in the last couple of years. My growth and that ability to like really trust when I can't see.
That's super cool. I'm curious because I hear your kind of the first part of that story from a lot of guys, right? That I grew up Catholic, a lot of rules, went to college, and then now sort of faith is maybe found in F3, which is great, right? Not knocking that sort of journey or experience at all, but how how have you made the sort of jump to where you're at now? Like, are you still going to Catholic church? You still go to a church? Or are you finding sort of spiritual experiences elsewhere? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, yeah. So I am. I go to St. Philip Neri, which is
Okay.
up in Florence. It's up in the like North Omaha area. So we can still go to church, and I'm really passionate about that. I'm also part of a nonprofit that's helping build a summer camp for
Cool.
like a Catholic summer camp, and that's called Holy Family Ranch. And so I'm really involved, and we're like trying to build beautiful things that are bringing people closer to Christ. Um, and in terms of what's made the biggest difference, though, it's just a
Mm.
commitment to daily prayer. Like just saying, like every day, I'm going to spend 10 or 15 minutes, kind of taking an inventory of my like thoughts and my feelings and my desires and like what's going on in my heart, and then offering that up to the Lord, and then saying like,
Yeah.
what do you want to do with this, right? And asking Him to respond in some ways, and just giving time for a response. I think Scripture is a really powerful way that the Lord can speak to us, right? And so taking time with that as well. In the Catholic Church, they kind of take some of the guesswork out, where they just give
Mhm.
you like readings every day that are like, these are the readings for the day, right? So you don't have to be like the one who's like, all right, I want to read about like Jonah today, or like Daniel, or like something like that, which we still
Mhm.
have total freedom to do. But we kind of talked earlier how it's like that like sense of regularity is like, it kind of gives you something where you can just jump into without having to like have any obstacles in the way. So yeah, that's just like personal time of prayer. And also, yeah, just asking God,
Mhm.
like, how are you moving right now? Like, how are you moving in my life? And like, make that clearer to me. Cause like, there's a lot of days where I'm like, this is not clear to me. Like, how you could be
Hmm.
possibly moving in this.
Well, do you
Um,
feel like you get
yeah.
a jolt at F3, or feel like it's helping accelerate that third F in any component of the workout or your experience there?
I think F3 is like, the way that I describe it, like, is kind of good, bad, or indifferent as well. Is like, I think the spirituality of F3 is like similar to like Alcoholics Anonymous, where it's like there is a sense that there is
Mhm.
a like higher power, um, but there's not pressure in it. I think one of the ways that it's helped me is that I've thought for a really long time in ministry that there should be a third place where people can go, and if they don't ever do the like become Christian or become converted, that they're still welcome there, and it could take like years and years and years for them to see like the power of like how God's working in their life. But if it took that
Mm.
long, we'd be okay with it. Like truly, there would be no one in a back room being like, "This is not okay." Like we got to figure out a way to like change them. Like I think that seeing that there can be a place like that has been really powerful for me. Because again, it's like
Right.
mercy all over the place. It's just like you love people for where they are, and not for like what you're trying to make them into. And if there is something you want for them, you want
Right.
it out of love and not out of like
Mm.
So
manipulation or
like
control, right? I
Catholic
love that
light.
about F3.
So Lutheran.
Hey, no, you know what I just I love and appreciate is I think it's easy to ask and like to think about prayer. Prayer is where I ask God for what I want, or I tell Him how I think He should be moving. But this idea of asking God to reveal it, show me how you're moving in this, and then creating space and time to listen or to see or have that revealed to me. I feel like oftentimes it's the opposite, right? It's like, well, God's not doing what I want or need Him to do, and then we get frustrated, and ultimately God's ways are different and higher than ours, right? And so I think that's I don't know, I love that perspective. It shifts it a little bit, right? It's like, especially if doubt can
Mm,
be a catalyst for faith if we let it, but we have to kind of ask those the right questions. So really appreciate that, man. That's awesome.
right.
Curious, something that just throughout my interactions with you in this conversation, and maybe I'm off here, but I notice humor is maybe something that you're good at, especially for a lawyer. I don't know too many lawyers in our group that are as funny as you, but where does humor fit, or where do you think that sort of has come into the picture for you? Like, where does that come from? Just this kind of joyful attitude that you've got.
I think it showed up as a defense mechanism growing up. Like I would just like it was like this is if I wanted to eat in a day, I had to be noticed. So if I was gonna be noticed, I had to be funny,
Yeah.
like and to be because there's 7 kids. Like they could easily just forget about one of us
Yeah.
at nighttime. So I don't know. Humor is a really interesting. It's always been part of my life, and like I've always been really interested in seeing other people smile and laugh, and I think really practically humor is just a way to sort of like lighten the load of any kind of conversation, right? So I use it. I think there's a sense, like you said, like like lawyers or like professionals, they have to have a sense of seriousness about them. But what I've found interesting is like Roadhouse is another guy who like crushes it in the business space, but he's a really funny guy, right? And he makes people feel welcome. And he's in learning and development, and so you may say like of the places where there should be like humor and comedy or whatever, like
Mhm.
that's a great place for it because you keep people excited and interested. But I've been thinking about it actually like this week. I was just thinking like people who are in a position where they feel like they can make jokes about like any kind of situation, they
Mhm.
make you feel safe
Yeah.
in the environment, right? And so like because they have enough control over the situation that they can like not only be like handling what's in front of them, but also be taking the time to like make people feel welcome and to like kind of move the needle forward. Um, and so I have gone through periods of time in my career, especially where I've been like, right, I need to be really serious right now. I'm like, no joking, especially if it's like written or whatever. Um, and there are certain things where you're like, okay, this is a really like tender sort of thing, and humor right now would actually be a disservice to maybe some
Sure.
pain that someone's going through. Um, Even if it's again just like a defense mechanism to like laugh through the pain or something like that. Like um, I used to not be able to
Oh
like
yeah.
turn it off ever, right? And now when I hear, especially when I hear people going through something like difficult, I don't immediately start like I don't try to like change the subject with a joke that makes it
Yeah.
lighter or something. I'm like, um, yeah. Sometimes you just have to like feel that pain and all of that, but um, I just think humor is just
Yeah.
a way to connect with people, uh, and it
I
comes
love
really
it.
naturally to me.
Yeah, it definitely. I think to your point, it creates a welcoming environment, right? And it sort of this feeling of like you have control and command over what's going on, which I love. And I think it's a good kind of segue into the leadership aspect of F3, right? The sort of reinvigorating male community leadership. And we try to give guys this experience through a VQ or maybe through leading a site. And kind of curious if you would share. Do you remember your VQ? Any experiences there? Or
Um, I'm like totally blanking on my VQ right now. Oh, is that Golden Spike? Yeah,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, I remember now. Sorry. I was like, I think I've been to Golden Spike so many times, but like the memories are just like coming together. But yeah, so I VQ'd at Golden Spike, and Oompa was the guy who he just helped me so much, like so immensely. I haven't talked about him at all yet because I figured we'd get there when it was talking about the leadership, but my VQ experience, I way overplanned it and way overcomplicated it. Like I had, and it was like a brutal beatdown. Like, and I just had no sense for like
mm-hmm.
how hard is this gonna be. Like, I go to workouts for like over a year, and it's like, all right, yeah, like no, that totally makes sense. But like until you've led a few, you're like, I have no idea how difficult this is, or like if we're gonna need the time. Like, I remember my second Q. I didn't use
Yeah.
half the workout I planned, like, which is a better place to be than not having enough. But it was like, it was immense
Mm-hmm.
the amount of things that like, we did not get to. um, and I was totally like intimidated and terrified. And like to your point, like I didn't make like any jokes because I was like, I gotta like really focus on what I'm doing right here. And I had my like Wanky right and like reading off the mission statement and everything, which I knew, but there is this like stepping into the shoes of the person who's in charge. Like I was of the mindset like there's no one who's gonna like fix this
Mm-hmm.
for me if I mess up, which is absolutely not true. Like if you mess up a
Yeah.
little bit, so you're gonna hear shit about it. So like yeah, that was but they will
Yeah,
correct you out
for
of
sure.
love. Like like hey, like we have to remember, like let's do a Namorama, man. That would be cool. Um, so yeah, it was I way overplanned it. I think I way overcomplicated, overthought about it. but Oompa was super helpful, and he like gave me like back blasts he had done in the past, and just gave me like he went through the workout with me. It was like, all right, that's good. That's gonna be hard, but that's really good. You know, like sort of just like light encouragement, but always available for resources.
How did you feel afterwards? Do you remember any sort of sense of increased confidence or more connected to the group? Anything after that you remember?
Yeah, yeah, both of those things. I felt a lot of relief that I didn't like totally mess it up. It was nice. There's a good showing for the workout, and it's a really nice day. And I I don't know. It's one of those things where the numbers are not what it's all about, right? But like that day, I was like, all right, like, do people even care about me here? Like, is this like, have they been like tolerating me? But now that I'm like stepping into leadership, they're like, all right, not that far. Like, like were there more layers to this like support system, or was I about to like find the bottom of it and be like, oh, like it's actually not that great? So I think it did totally made me feel more part of the group. Like I was one of the cooler guys who like had been around and knew stuff forever. Like, there's just a number of points along the way where you're like, okay, so you find out like when somebody started coming out, and it's like I think Canadian Bacon started coming out like a couple months after me, right, or something like that. It was like one or the other. It was he was there first, and then I was there. But I just remember like feeling that about him, where it was like you just like seem to know everyone and like your way around this. And I'm like, oh, we've been out here for like the same amount of time. And we kind of like had that moment about each other. Where we're like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
we're in the same
like,
class, right?
He's getting your head a little bit.
Well, the other kind of leadership opportunity, right, is leading a site, and kind of curious your experience as you were handed the flag by Oompa, and then as you selected Tom as your successor. Talk us through that sort of experience.
Yeah. Leading Golden Spike was really good. It was like, it was again interesting because when you take the flag, it is kind of all about you, right? Like that like shovel pass itself is like all about you, and then like the person who's handing it to you, it's kind of about their legacy and what they accomplished while they were there. And there's a lot of people out there to support you and everything, and that's great. But it was market. Like after that, it was like, okay, what we're asking you to do, and it's not like there's like, for those of you who have never had a flag, or if this is like you're relatively new to F3, I used to think there was sort of this like inner circle that everybody gets to be a part, like this like thing that's like now you're in the next layer of leadership and they're about to like haze you and stuff. It was like, actually when you take the shovel, it's like, no, you're a leader now. Like, so what are you going to do with it? Right? Like we'll be here to support you and we'll come out and like work out with you and everything, but like, who are you going to choose? Like, how are you going to invest in someone else's leadership? I think that's a really intentional choice to not like give people a 100-page handbook about how to do this. It's like, get people on the queue, follow the rules for a workout, make sure no one's falling behind and like everyone's safe. But that's about it. So you really do have this challenge of leadership in front of you, and showing up every week and like making sure that the people who are queuing feel like ready and that they don't need, like, you don't need anything, that like, that they're prepped for everything, but not like micromanaging, right? So like I ended up on this cadence of like the day before I would really just text the guy and be like, hey, super looking forward to tomorrow. Is anything you need from me? Right. And I actually think that doing that kind of over and over again teaches you something about leadership itself, like outside of F3, where you're like, actually, if you get the right people, like, and you've chosen, who they are and like what they're capable of, and you just say like, hey, how's it going? What do you need from me? Like, that's like 95%
for
of leadership.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then like following through on if they do say they need something from you, like following through and sort of seeing maybe obstacles in their way that are ahead of them, and deciding which ones to remove.
Yep. Right? I love it. And it's interesting that I think we've gotten really good. A lot of our site queues will reach out the day before, right? And they'll say, hey, do you need anything? Looking forward to it, whatever. And I think 9 times out of 10, my response is no, I think I'm good. Or maybe a question about like, remind me, are we able to use the field, whatever kind of stuff. Yeah. Right. But you definitely notice when guys don't reach out. I notice like if I'm on the queue and the guy hasn't reached out, and then I'm sort of like, do they remember that I'm queuing? Do they care? Maybe they don't. Maybe, maybe I'm just swirling in my ego, right? And I need to move on. But it's just a nice little touch, right? To like reach out, let the guy know, hey, excited to have you. Do you need anything? I'm curious.
Yeah. But to get back, to like Tom Tom and Oompa though, Golden Spike has had like just this really great group of guys who have led there, and uh, I think that like it feels really, it's really, I feel really honored to be a part of that group of guys, and I have just a ton of respect for Tom Tom. He would show up like every week. He has only missed a pre-run like twice, and it's because he was like dying, like he was just super sick or something like that. And it was like he would post but not do a pre-run. Like so when he gets there, he's like, I'm serious about this, and that consistency, and he's just a really even keeled guy. Like and so I'm like all over the place. I'm like super hot one month and then it's like super cold the next. And if I will be that in a conversation in a pre-run with him, and he is just like straight the whole time. It's just like flat and like even keeled and like and he's not trying to be like the middle of attention all the time, like the center of attention all the time. But I would see over time just ways that he would like run up next to someone and just ask them a really simple question that didn't make them feel intimidated or anything, and like made them feel welcome at the spike. And I like at first I was like, oh, that's my job. I should have done that better. And I was like, no, like I think this is like some data right now that I'm like he can really do this really well, and I said this in a COT, and I've said it before at Spike, but like I think the world needs less loud leadership all around, and I think that he's like just a really consistent person that kind of stands his ground and like is who he is. And I think we need more of that instead of the loud like here's what you ought to believe
for sure
all the time.
I love Tom Tom. He growing up, he was friends with my oldest brother, so I kind of knew him before.
Oh, nice.
And we both had one of those moments, like I remember you. I don't want to talk about our sketchy past, but I remember you, and I'm glad you're here, and I love you, kind of thing. Super
Right.
great guy.
Yeah.
I am curious, just your time as a site Q, like anything that you came across, maybe tricks of the trade or any sort of advice that you might have for guys that are like maybe thinking about or actually taking over a site, anything that you picked up along the way?
I would just say that the schedule fills itself up super easily. Like at least that was my experience. Like there was a lot of guys who would come to me with um, just like, hey, I've got an anniversary. You reached out and was like, hey, it's my 5-year anniversary of being clean, and it's like this is a great opportunity. Center of Omaha, like Friday sites. It was a huge party. It was really impactful for me. It's one of the things I remember really really vividly from the year. But there's a few like that where it was like the Marine Corps birthday, and we had a bunch of Marines come out and lead a workout. But the only time I got no from people was like, hey, that month is just really tough for me right now. Like people are super willing to lead. And so I was super intimidated by that prospect. And so there was definitely like that, like I was doing the math of like, all right, I was looking at people who were at Golden Spike one week, and I was like, there's only 9 guys there. So if I get all 9 of those guys, I'm set for another 2 months. And then like, maybe I could just cycle through those 9 guys again, and we'll be, like it was like early on, and I was like, no, like I looked back and I was like, I missed like 30 guys that would have said yes immediately, and I wish I would, like, you know what I mean, like all these sorts of things. Like, in retrospect, it's a lot easier. I did personally, like, this is not what everybody has to do. I tried to have some kind of event like once a month that was separate from like the normal kind of ebb and flow of F3, right? And I think that was good because it did show me, like, I looked ahead a little bit and I was like, all right, there's nothing going on that day. Like we had a Christmas queue. Oompa and I did one. I just mentioned a couple of other events. We had like VQs, and we did a 5-year convergence because it was like a 5-year for Golden Spike. And that was a really good time. And so I loved doing that because it was like I could kind of choose when it would be a little more intense with the planning and trying to get people out there. But I never really wanted Spike to be this place that was like really, really big all the time and was like pulling from other places. Like I wanted to kind of be a team player, and also I it's a giant group, it's like super cool to feel that energy, especially for like FNGs to see that. But you can also feel like a drop in the
Hmm.
bucket and you don't really matter in those situations. And then you start to feel like, it wouldn't really matter if I didn't come out because there's just gonna be 50 guys. I'm not even gonna get a good workout. Like, and so I was just always, I truly like brought it to prayer afterwards. Like I always thank
Hmm.
God for like who showed up, right? Because it was like sometimes there was like 5 or 6 guys and it was like we all get to know each other super well. The workout was probably better, and like all
Yeah.
three Fs were still there and we're still following our thing. Um, so there's an ego thing there with like the numbers, but like to recognize like there's value in every size of group that comes out to F3. It's really be okay with that. Like be okay with that ebb and flow of the big versus the
Yeah.
small and the medium, right?
I
I think
love
that's
it,
what
and
I'd
I,
say.
I do think two events that come to mind you didn't mention, but Oompa's ode to February. I think it's always like one of my favorites, and then and maybe something we'll try to do more regularly, but celebrating the launch date anniversary. Normally the shovel pass is at or around that same date, but some of our sites maybe are on a different
Hmm.
schedule with shovel passes. But it's really cool to just think about, like, I think about some of these sites that are 7 years old, 6 years old, and just the number of new guys, or the number of just guys that have posted or been impacted by some of those sites. And it's just, I don't know, it's really cool
Mm.
to me to think about. But
I do think there's so many cool ways that F3
Mhm.
like slices the pie to celebrate different things. And I've definitely taken that to my real life, like my real life, like to everything else in my life, right? Because yeah, I mean, just like saying that, it's like, what if, like, I didn't have an easy way to do this or how to communicate, or I didn't really think of it super well, but like, I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool if every single person who was EH'd at Golden Spike, like,
Hmm.
somehow got a message that was like, hey, you remember when you came into like the fold at Golden Spike? Like, we're about to have our 5 year. Would
Come
you
on.
like, you know? So I kind of settled, and I tried to text everyone who had queued, like and had queued recently or like was important to the Spike and those sorts of things. I did the same with my anniversary, which was super special to see. Like at the shovel pass, I asked the question like, who here has queued in the
Yeah.
last year? And it was just like, I mean, these shovel passes are getting huge. Like it was like 60 guys or something, and like I think like 30
Hmm.
guys rose their hand. It was honestly overwhelming because there's not that many more who like yeah. So like most of the people who had
Yeah.
queued, I guess is what I'm saying, were there, and just to like remember each one of their queues, like it was just overwhelming. The
Heck
having
yeah.
all those memories at once.
I love it, man.
Yeah, but like
Yeah,
we celebrate,
I
right?
love it, and I think just thank you for your leadership at Golden Spike, and even every time you've queued, I mean, just the impact you've had. Uh, I know has been bigger than we'll ever know, and so just I think, and we could go on. I still have more questions that I want to I want to ask you just about life and kind of your journey, but kind of where we will wrap up. And this is a question Pony likes to normally ask, but where do you need prayers or encouragement, or kind of lift it up if we see you out there, or if guys are listening, they want to reach out and sort of encourage you in an area? Where are you at today? Where do you need sort of support from other guys?
Yeah, it's been really beautiful that what F3 has shown me I'm capable of from a leadership perspective. Um, but I do think like people talk about the S
Hmm.
curve of disruption. You're kind of at one spot on a graph and you go up for a while, and then you start to like kind of dip down for a while because you're on this path that catapults you up way higher than you were. But it's like learning, and you're kind of grinding and figuring out like who it is that you need to be in order to get to that next space. I feel like I'm kind of in that right now. I'm in that like trough in between the two. And it's not that I'm like down or desolate or anything in particular. It's just
Hmm.
there's a lot going on right now. Like I'm with what I'm involved in and like the ways that I think I'm being called to lead. I think I could talk to a lot of F3 guys, and they've felt like similar things about this, where there's just a lot that's being put on their plate and responsibility, and responsibility, frankly, that like not everybody gets asked to like step into, right? But again, a lot of F3 guys I think are in this boat where it's like you're not just a leader at your school, you become a leader in your community and like in your city, and you're not just a leader in F3, like you're just a leader, right? And so that like process of accepting those kind of reins, I think I'm just like in the thick of that right now. And so if like people could just pray for me and like offer me any advice or guidance or books or resources or anything like that of just like growing and moving into leadership and those sorts of things,
Heck
it's
yeah,
kind of where I'm at. Yeah. Pray for my wife who has to deal with me all the time. My kids.
Yeah, pray for all of our M's, right? That's an ongoing prayer.
Yeah.
It's like guys who are sick, injured, and
yeah, especially
sure.
like like pray for me and my wife when I have that conversation to tell her about F3s. And like that goes well.
I don't have any advice there to win that over, but no, I just have to take a minute and affirm you in your leadership. I mean, just it's been so cool to hear your journey and just this passion that I feel like the Spirit has developed in you, and is clearly like lighting on fire, just to help other people flourish. And so it's just been really cool to recount that with you and just to get to know you over the last couple of years. So thank you for your leadership and for the time today. This has been amazing. So we'll do a little name-orama here to wrap us up. I'll start us off. Brandon Fleardy, 38, The Plague.
I'm Alex Eagle Camp 31, almost famous.
Almost famous. Nice. And you've got the call sign. I love it. I appreciate you, brother. This has been awesome. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Peace to you, man. Peace, everyone.